Yes, go.
We have Yud Daled Vav. The metal cover of a teni that one made into a mirror. Rabbi Yehuda rules a tahor, but the Kakamas rule the tamei. A mirror that broke, but it does not reflect the greater part of the face, it is tahor. Metal utensils contract tuma become tahor when broken, and these are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua says they only become tahor when intact. How so? If one sprinkled upon them the metal utensils and they broke on the same day, and he refashioned them and then sprinkled upon them the second time that day, they are tahor. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua says no sprinkling may be done before the third and seventh day. The akuva key that broke at its bend is tahor, and Rabbi Yehuda rules it tamei because one can unlock the door with it from the inside. And a gamma key that broke at the end of its comma is tahor. If it had teeth and holes, it is tamei. If the teeth were removed, it is tamei on account of the holes. If the holes were sealed, it is tamei on account of the teeth. If the teeth were removed and the holes were sealed and they broke into each other, it is tahor. A mustard strainer in which three of its holes are at the bottom broke into one another is tahor. And the grinding funnel of metal is tamei.
Okay. All right. Perek Tes Vav. We now switch into the subject of wooden Keilim. Clay 8, clay or, clay etzim, clay zchuchis. So all these things have the same halacha: wood, leather, bone, and glass. Okay. Shetei tahorin, if they don't have a receptacle, then they are tahor. Mekablehin tamehin, and if they have a receptacle, then they can become tamei. Nishbaru, what happens if they break? They immediately lose their tumah. They become tahor. Chazar va'asa mehen keilim, if they got glued back together. Mekablin tumah mikan ulahaba, then they only become tamei from then on onwards. They don't have that same gezerah that we had with metal, right? Because metal is a lot easier to break and fix because you can melt it and reshape it. Where it's a business for wooden keilim, anything like that. You can't just like easily break it and fix it because it leaves fault lines and whatever. So they weren't worried. So Chazal were not concerned about any of the issues that you might have with metal keilim. It's just not convenient to try and dodge the 7-day business with these other keilim. Okay, now we also have a halacha with these things that even if they are receptacles, but they are particularly large and not intended to be moved, then they do not get tamei. And this is learned out from a pasuk where they compared to sak. It's from a pasuk. Where's the pasuk that it's that they get it from? We call kli eight or beged or sak. So basically, by listing all the other utensils together with the sack, the Torah equates them, teaching that these utensils can become tamei only if they're similar to the sack. In other words, that they're portable. So all of these things over here are non-portable, and therefore they are exempt from tumah. Now let's go into the list. A shida, a bin, teva is a chest, a migdal, the cabinet, kaveres a kash, a straw basket, kaveres a kanim, a reed basket, uboris fina alexandrit, the cistern of an Alexandrian ship, sheyesh lahim shalayim, that it has a base. Vein machzikin arba'im sa'abelach, and they can hold 40 se'ah of wet measure. Shehen korayim biyavesh, which incidentally is 2 core of dry measure.
That was my cat. I wasn't yelling at you.
I saw your cat.
Oh, he almost got me. Okay.
So all of these things they're obviously intended to be used full, and when they're full, they're too heavy to be moved. Therefore, they're not considered tamei. They're all tahor, and even if they touch a dead body, they remain tahor.
Okay.
But all other keilim, other than the ones in this list, bein mekablin, bein einam mekablin, whether they do or don't have a receptacle, tameins divrei Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Meir says that this list is an exhaustive list, and anything else that is not on this list is susceptible to tumah. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda disagrees on this, and he says no. He learns the other direction. he learns the exceptions. The exceptional cases are the ones that can become tamei, and anything not on that list is tahor. Okay, so he gives a list of things that can become tamei. He says a dardur agala, a wagon barrel. Now, why should that become tamei? Because it's loaded on a wagon, which means that it's meant to be portable. The wagon moves. So even though it's very heavy, you can transport it. Similarly, kustos hamalachim, the provision chests of kings, they also are they would be placed in the king's traveling coach. Arevasa abdanim, the tanner's trough. The tanner's trough is also has handles or wheels that make it transportable even when it's full. Or boris vina katana, and the cistern of a small ship. That's the water tank of the small ships that go from city to city along the coastline. Okay. Aaron, and a coffin. The coffin, i.e. a large wooden coffin which has handles or poles with which it can be carried. Even though they do have this large volume of 40 sa'ah, because they are made to be carried with whatever's inside them. So therefore, so that's the difference between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir, is that Rabbi Yehuda gives the exceptions of the things that can become tamei, and Rabbi Meir says the exceptions are the things that cannot become tamei, which means anything not on that list, there is going to be disagreement. Shar kol Keilim, says Rabbi Yehuda, hamekablim toharin u'she'ena mekablim tamein, and anything that is that has a receptacle, anything that is big enough to hold 40 sa'ah is tahor, and anything that's not 40 sa'ah is tamei. And the main difference, point of dispute between them, is the householder's kneading trough. Okay, so what's with that specific that specific thing is the householder's kneading trough does have a capacity of 40 sa'ah. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't include it in his list of large capacity utensils that are susceptible to tumah, so he says that it's tahor. And the dispute between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda revolves around the following point: the trough of the householder is moved when it is full only on rare occasions by placing it on a wagon and pulling it. Mm-hmm. And the argument between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda is whether or not this infrequent movement is sufficient to consider it a movable utensil analogous to a sack. Right. Okay, and that's the point of dispute. All right. Base. Aru vos shal nachtomim, the baking boards of professional bakers. Tameos. So even though they are flat and have no receptacle, nonetheless, Chazal made a gezerah on them because they are used as a kli, because they're used as something that the bakers have got professionally, and I think they might have some rough edges or something to hold the dough in place. So it might be specially adapted in some way for the professional bakers, and therefore they made a gezerah on them that they can be makabel tumah. But they never made such a gezerah on a regular householder's baking board. It's just a flat piece of wood and is immune to tumah. Serkan or kirkaman tameos. However, if the householder took them and made a special adaptation, either by painting them with red paint or saffron. Now, why does that help? The footnote over here on 662 says, if a householder painted his baking board, it takes on the form of a utensil because it's been finished and becomes susceptible to tumah by rabbinic decree. He when the householder paints his board, he demonstrates that he intends to designate it solely for baking. So it becomes sort of like the professional baker's board. All right, again, back to the professional bakers. Daf shel nachtomin shikava or bakosel. So a baker's shelf that was fixed into the wall. Rabbi Eliezer matar have a chachamim matamin. Okay, Rabbi Eliezer says this is now fixed into the wall. So since it's been attached into the building, it's mechuber lekarka, and therefore it should be tahor. So what's with the chachamim? The chachamim argue that the shelf is susceptible to tumah even after it's attached to the wall. In their opinion, the rule that a utensil is attached to the ground is not susceptible to tumah applies only to an object that was formed into a utensil after it was attached to the ground. However, an object that had the status of a tumah susceptible utensil before it was attached to the ground retains the status even after it's attached to the ground. Mm-hmm. And I had a problem with this. I saw this comment over here, and I thought that doesn't make that is not consistent what we learned before. So when we go back to remember the one with the saw that the guy attached into the top of his board,
and then they changed it the other way
right?
around. Right.
And they said that is once that's attached into the into the wall, it must be then it becomes tahor. So it seems to be a stereo over here. All I can assume is that they're talking about something where it's not something that is that's permanently on the wall, because in Mishna Yud Dalet Gimel, it says if it was inverted. I want to actually if there's a comment over here. It's a difficult one. I'm gonna have to bring up the stereo with my learned colleagues. Okay. So let's leave that question open for now. Sarod shel nachtomin. So this is a utility plate. It's like a srida that we saw that they used to put over the oven. We saw that when we were dealing with ovens, and we had a srida that they put over the mouth of the oven. Okay, same thing. So this, if it belongs to a baker, it's tameh shel baalei batim tahor, for similar reasons as we had with the baking board. Geper for me'arba ruch osav tameh. Now, if the householder made a rim on all four sides, then it becomes tameh, obviously, because it's a receptacle. Nifratz meruach achas. If even one wall of this rim broke off, then again it becomes tahor, because it's no longer a receptacle. Rabbi Shimon omer im hiskino liyos koretz alav. If he prepared it so that he may slice the dough upon it. Now, what does he mean by preparing it? It becomes tameh. So what is so in Rabbi Shimon's, according to Rabbi Shimon, if the plate is physically modified to make it more suitable for cutting dough, this suffices to render it susceptible to tumah, even though it's only a durabanan. So in his opinion, the baker uses the utility plate only primarily as a surface on which to cut dough into the smaller pieces that he forms into loaves, and as a tray to carry the finished loaves to the oven to bake. So it's this function that gives it the status of a tumah susceptible utensil, despite its lack of a receptacle. Okay, so that's Rabbi Shimon. V'chein hamaroch tameh, and a rolling pin also is tameh, even though the rolling pin does not have a receptacle. It is nonetheless specially adapted. Oh wait, what are we saying here? The maroch. Since it was used to carry objects, it was decreed susceptible to tumah by the rabbis, despite its lack of a receptacle, just as they decreed a table susceptible. Maybe the rolling pins didn't look like ours, but I can't imagine how our rolling pins would be used to carry objects.
How would you carry it with rolling pin? How would you carry that?
It doesn't sound practical. Like maybe you're doing like pizza, folded over the thing. Okay, I'm going to leave that as an open thing. Just like a lot of the Keilim that they use in the time of the Mishna are just things that we're not familiar with. Yeah. It's like expecting them to tell us, whether a toasted cheese maker is okay, obviously it is, because it's metal,
right?
Anyways, yam nafa shel salatin tameh. So the screen of the sifter. So you know what a sifter looks like. It's like a round. It's a round piece with a grid at the bottom.
Right.
Okay. Now the one of the flour merchants is tameh. We're talking just about the screen, because it's got this metal screen at the bottom that's made out of wires in a crisscross. Okay, and that, even when it's detached from the walls, is nonetheless tameh, because the v'shel balabatim is tahor, but a householder's sifter is not. Okay, what's the difference between them? Is that the sifter's one is made to detach and reattach, so it doesn't have so it's easy, and part of its normal use is to take it open, wash it out, shake it, put it back together, clip it on. Okay, as opposed to your householder's one, and that I think is actually quite relatable nowadays, that your sifter presumably doesn't have anything that allows you to detach it from the walls.
Right.
So if it comes off, then it's broken. And a broken kli doesn't have tumah. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Afshal Godeles Tamei Moshav. Is it also the screen of the hairdresser? Okay, you have apparently what they had was the seat is where girls would sit at the hairdresser, and when braiding a young girl's hair, the hairdresser would seat the girl upon a large mesh screen, so as to keep falling hair as well as dirt and foreign matter that may fall from her hair when it's combed out. So since the screen is designated as a seat, for it's susceptible to midras tumah, right? Midras is for anything that you put your weight on.
Right.
Because that's what they sit on in order to have the hair braided. So it's not just so it's a higher level of tumah that it is susceptible to. Okay, and that ends our new session, our new Mishnahs for today. And we go back to Yud Beis Aleph.
Next week I'll be in the next sefer for
Is it?
Keilim. Okay. All right.
In my book, I've got chapter 16 in my book. Oopsie.
I think that's it. What do you want? Yeah, 16. We'll start 16 on not Sunday. It'll be Sunday. No. When will we start 16? You won't be back.
I think on Sunday already. We're on chapter 16.
Okay.
I checked before I left what we would be getting up to, and I was very happy to see that I only needed to take one volume of my Mishnah.
Excuse me 1 second. I'm sorry, someone's at the door. Just 1 second. Okay, sure. I'm sorry. So Keilim, we go. We have Gimel.
Yud Beis Aleph. Keilim.
I'm sorry. Right there. I mean, we're doing Keilim today, right?
We're still we have Hazara from a week ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Right. Okay. I'm messed up over here for a change. Okay. All right. Here we go. Okay. Yud Beis Aleph. The ring of a person is tummy, but the ring of an animal or of utensils and all other types of rings are tahor. A beam for arrows is tummy, and a beam for prisoners is tahor, and a collar is tummy. The chain that has a locking device is tummy, but one made for tying is tahor. And the chain of merchants is tummy, but the chain of household is tahor. Rabbi Yossi said, when is this so? When it consists of only one link, but if it consists of two links or a kazal, a kilazon, was attached to its end, it is tummy. The beam of a comber's balance scale is tummy on account of its hooks, and the beam of the balance scale of householders, if it has hooks, is tummy. Hooks on the poles of porters are tummy, tahor, but hooks on the poles of peddlers are tummy. Rabbi Yehuda said, with regard to the hooks of peddlers, with that which is in front of him is tummy, but that which is behind him is tahor. The hooks of a dargash are tummy, but the hooks of bedposts are tahor, and the hook of a chest is tummy, but the hook of a fish trap is tahor. The hook of a table is tummy, but the hook of a wooden candelabra is tahor. This is the general rule. Anything that attached to which is tummy is itself tummy. Anything which is attached to that which is tahor is itself tahor. And regarding all of these hooks, each one on its own is tahor. Okay. One more, right. Regarding the metal cover of a tani belonging to householders, Rabbi Gamil rules it tummy, but the Kakaman rule it tahor. But the metal cover of a tani that belongs to physicians is tummy, and the door of a cabinet that belongs to householders is tahor. But the door of a cabinet that belongs to the physicians is tummy, and tongues are tummy, but parakin are tahor. The akrav of an olive press is tummy, but a hook is a wall is tahor. Okay.
There.
All right. Over here. This is for next week. And now we are on to Keilim. Gimel. If there was a katas bird for this woman and an ohal bird for this one, which mingled together, if the Kohen offered all of them above the red line, half of this pair is valid and half is invalid. If he offered all of them below the red line, half of this pair is valid and half is invalid. If he offered half of the pair above the red line and half below the red line, both are invalid, because I can say that the katas was the one offered above and the ola was the one offered below. If there was a katas bird and an ola bird as well as an undesignated pair and a designated pair, if he made all of them above the red line, half of each of these pairs is valid and half of these pairs is invalid. If he made all of them below the red line, half of these pairs are valid and half of them is these pairs are each of these pairs is invalid. If you made half of them above the red line and half of them below the red line, none is valid except that other designated pair, and that pair is divided between them. If the Katos birds mingle with obligatory pairs, only the number of Katos birds in the obligatory pairs are valid. If the bird offerings in the obligatory pairs are twice as many in the Katos birds, half of the offerings are valid and half are invalid. But if the Katos birds were twice as many as the bird offerings in the obligatory pair, the number of offerings equal to the number of birds in the obligatory pair are valid. Similarly, if all the birds mingle with an equal number of bird offerings in obligatory pairs, only the number of all the birds in the obligatory pairs are valid. If the bird offerings in the obligatory pairs were twice as many as the Ola birds, half of the offerings are valid, half are invalid. If the Ola birds were twice as many as the all bird offerings in the obligatory pairs, the number of offerings equal to the number of birds in the obligatory pairs are valid. Okay. That's it.
Tomorrow
we
and
on to
move on to
Bakara.
Keilim.
Did you say Caleb?
Yep.
Why don't I have it here? Oh, here it is. Oh, the next Caleb. Okay.
No, the first Keilim. We go back to the beginning of Keilim after Keilim.
Are you going back to the beginning, Caleb? You're not going on. You're not going on to number. You're not going to 16.
That's for the front end of our
Oh, that's right. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going all over the place. Okay. Aleph.
Yeah. Bechoros Zayin Aleph, yeah. Oh,
no, Caleb.
Aleph,
Aleph Tet. Aleph Ket. Ket Aleph, correct?
are you talking about Bechoros now?
No, Caleb.
Okay, when we finish Kinim tomorrow, then we start at Keilim Aleph.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just really confused, which is not unusual. Caleb, okay. I knew Caleb was confusing, but I'll have to get the other. Okay, all right. I'll apply it. Okay. All right. So we are doing Bechoros now.
Bechoros, yes, Bechoros Zayin Aleph.
Sorry, really. That's what happens when you go to sleep at 2 in the morning and wake up at 5. So you know. Okay. These blemishes, whether permanent or temporary, render a man unfit. To them must be added in the case of the case of a man. One whose head is wedge-shaped or turnip-shaped or hammer-shaped, or whose head is sunken, or whose occiput is valid. A hunchback's would Behuda declares him fit, but the common declares him unfit. A bald-headed man is unfit, who is regarded as a bald-headed man. Whoever has no ring of hair circling from ear to ear, but if he has, he's fit. If he has no eyebrows, or if he has one eyebrow, he is the Gibeon mentioned in the Torah. Rav Doshi says if it is one whose eyebrows are hanging down, but Kanina ben Atigano says the one who has two backs and 2 spines. The karam is unfit. What is a karam? One who can paint both his eyes with one movement. Both his eyes are set high and both eyes are set low. One eye is set high and one is set low. And he focuses on the lower story and the upper story simultaneously. Or one who cannot bear the sun, one who has unmatched limbs or watery eyes is unfit, and one whose lashes fell out is unfit for reasons of unsightliness. Okay. One who's on, that's it. Okay.
Okay, Sanhedrin.
Okay. Hey, they integrate them with 7 questions, in which septenary, in which year, in which month, and what day of the month, and what day of what hour, in which place, what Josie says on what day, in which hour, in which place. Did you recognize him? Did you warn him? In the case of idolaters, they ask, what did he worship and how did he worship it? Whoever expands the interrogations is praiseworthy. And what's happened at Ben Zaka interrogated concerning the stem of 2 figs? What difference is there between examination and interrogations? In the case of examinations, if one says, I do not know, the testimony is null. In the case of interrogations, if one says, I do not know, or even if 2 say we do not know, the testimony is upheld. Whether in the case of examinations or in the case of interrogations, if they contradict each other, their testimony is null. If one says it happened on the 2nd of the month and one says it happened on the 3rd of the month, the testimony is upheld, because this one is aware of the intercalation of the month and this one is unaware of the intercalation of the month. If one says it happened on the 3rd and one says it happened on the 5th, their testimony is null. If it happened, if it says it happened on the second day, hour of the day, and one says it happened in the third hour of the day, the testimony is upheld. If one says it happened in the third hour and one says in the fifth, the testimony is null. Rabbi Yehuda said it's upheld. But if one says it happened in the fifth hour and one says it happened in the seventh, the testimony is null, because in the fifth hour the sun is to set in the east, while the seventh hour is to set in the west.
Okay. Sukkah baseline.
A person who has had most of his body inside the sukkah in his table inside the house, Beis Shammai says invalidates the sukkah, and Beis Hillel validates it. Said Reb Hillel to Reb Shammai, Beis Shammai, if it did not happen if the elders of Beis Shammai and the elders of Beis Hillel went to visit Reb Yochanan, son of Choronite, and found him sitting with his head and most of his body inside the sukkah in his table within the house, and they said nothing to him. Reb Shammai replied to him, is that your proof? Actually, they said to him, is this how you have always conducted yourself, and then you have never in your life fulfilled the mitzvah of sukkah? Women, slaves, and minions are exempt from the sukkah. A minor who does not need his mother is obligated to dwell in the sukkah. It once happened that the daughter-in-law of Shammai, the elder, gave birth, and he removed the plaster fruit and placed the chak above the bed for the child. All the 7 days a man must take his sukkah, his permanent abode, and his house, his temporary abode. If it rains, when it is permissible to leave, when the porridge becomes spoiled. This illustrated this with a parable. To what is this comparable? To a slave who came to pour out a cup for the master, and he poured the jug at his face.
Okay, and brachos, gimel, base.
We had somebody in Far Rockaway that had a very, very, very small pergola, whatever it was. And his wife sat in the house, and he sat by the window. It's a window, and it's very interesting. Okay, we have brachas and we have gimel base. They bury the dead in turn. They are liable to begin and finish before they reach the line. They should begin, and if not, they shall not begin. Those standing in line, the innermost are exempt, while the outer are obliged. One who's dead lies before him is exempt from treading the Shema. I went the wrong way. No, I just went the wrong way. I went backwards. Okay, I'm used to the other one. Women, slaves, and minions are exempt from reading the Shema and tefillah.
Minors, not
Women, minors are exempt from reading the Shema and tefillah, but are subject to the obligation of tefillah, the mezuzah, and to recite Birkas Hamazon. Al-Bakori reads mentally and does not recite the blessing before or after it. On food, he recites the after blessings, but does not bless before. Rabbi Yehuda says he blesses before and after them.
And we are done.
Okay, can you give me just 1 minute? I want to get this straight because I'll